Alright, here today I'm going to try to show step by step everything you need to convert to SS brakes on a non-SS HHR. I couldn't find any good write-ups, couldn't find any videos. It's pretty simple. Everything I've seen, it's a basically a plug and play bolt-in deal. So here we go. There's the HHR. It's a 2006 2.4 liter 5-speed, and there is the donor car. 07 SS, which I mean I use that term pretty loosely because this is the 2.4 liter auto, which the next year basically became a sport coupe. So, but it does have, nonetheless, it does have the SS brakes and suspension. So I bought this specifically just to convert the HHR over to SS brakes. So in the front, I've already got at least one side tore apart. You can see the caliper bracket is slightly larger. This is the SS and this is the HHR. You can see that these points are slightly further apart. That's because the rotor, you can see I've got the HHR rotor on top of the Cobalt SS rotor, and it is slightly larger. A lot of people say it makes a pretty significant difference, so we'll swap the front brakes as well. But the most significant is going from drum brakes to disc brakes in the rear. To get started, we got both of them fully supported on jack stands, you know, safety first and whatnot. The front brakes, as I said, pretty easy. Basically, you're just going to swap the caliper bracket and the rotors over, and you're done. There's nothing hard there. The rear, you're going to take out the whole axle assembly. So you see it uses a kind of a torsional beam axle. You're going to undo the shocks. Of course, I'm keeping my KYBs, so I'm just going to disconnect these down here at the axle. And I might just disconnect and get it completely out of the way. And you can disconnect the brake line. You can do it here on the axle or here on the body. It doesn't really make a difference. I mean, it's just got a little bitty rubber line. I'm going to disconnect at the axle and just leave my factory rubber lines there. You're going to unbolt on both sides. You got 3 bolts. I can get under here and show y'all that hold the axle in place. You got one right here. You got one right there. And one on the other side, right there. And it's the exact same on the other side. So you got 3 bolts per. It unbolts. Then you have to disconnect your ABS wire. That's what's dangling down right there. This right here unplugs from right up there. Pretty easy. Just unplug. It'll plug in the exact same spot in the HHR. Now what I've seen is probably going to be the trickier part is the emergency brake cables. Those also have to be changed because they are different. They use this style end on the disc brake, and the other side has a different end. But if you follow the cables up, you see they go right into the body, right there, and same on the other side. You can't really see it because the exhaust is in the way from here. But so you can go inside the well, it's the same the HHR and the Cobalt. Basically, there's on the Cobalt there's a cup holder that just unsnaps right there, and you got your connection points right here, there, and there. You can undo the cables right there. With the axle out, you can see everything obviously a little bit better. So you're gonna have 3 bolts. This side and this side. Got the e-brake cables, 1 per side, obviously. Got your brake line, 1 per side. You have your ABS wiring harness that unplugs, and shock like I showed earlier. And that's all you got, and it's out. On the HHR, it's pretty similar, except just the 1 cup holder. It's basically the whole top part of the center console pops out. Get that moved out of the way, and you can see down there, that's, you can kind of see right there where that's where the cables hook up. Maybe you'll see it better from up here. Yeah, right there. That's where you got to unhook them and slide them out. Since there's such limited room in here to actually get those e-brake cables disconnected, looks like the easiest way is going to be taking this adjustment nut right here and loosening up. What that's going to do is loosen up the cable right there where the other two hook up, so this should just be able to pop right off. Just used a 10mm deep well socket and extension, and you can just turn it by hand. It's not that tight at all. It's got kind of a nylock nut on it, and then you're going to take your needle nose pliers like so. Should be able to get in there now and just pop them right off. The cable's disconnected. This part's easier if you have two people. If not, this yellow plastic tray right here, you'll have to move that because the cables won't pull through, they'll get hung on it. But I've got a 10-year-old helper underneath the car, and so what you'll do is you'll actually lift up on the ends of the e-brake cable, and while the other one slides it out, and it'll just come right out. Let's see if I can get to where you all can see that. Okay, see, got my thumb underneath it. All right, Joe, pull. Pull. Yeah. All right, with it disconnected from inside, see right here, it just slides right on out. There we go. So I got all my tools. Got my 18, 19, 22, 13mm for the brake lines, and screwdriver to pop the brackets out. Let's see how long this takes to get it out. Loosen up the brake line. Luckily, I live in the south, so rust isn't really an issue here, so stuff generally breaks free pretty easy. Can you see what I'm doing right here? Yep. Got my 10-year-old son videoing for me. Figured he's going to get you a lot better angles than me trying to hold the camera with one hand and work with the other. You want to do the brake lines before you disconnect the shocks, just because you don't want to overstretch that brake line. You can already tell it's a little tight right now. And my springs are out because I run 2-inch lowering springs, and they just basically fall out once you jack it all the way up. Alright, brake line is disconnected. Let's get this clip moving. Clip out, brake line just pushes through, and of course we already have the e-brake cables disconnected. Switch to the 18. I always start with the most inside bolt, so your arm isn't underneath anything that's going to fall once you're finally done unbolting it. side. We'll do the same on this side now. Disconnect the brake line. And like before on the disc brake rear axle when we dropped it, I just got my old winter set of wheels and tires here to so it's not falling so far when it actually drops out. Alright, brake line down. Get this clip out of the way. These clips will sometimes fight you, but work it back and forth and it'll pop out. There it goes. Brake line just wiggles free. Switch to the 18. There we go. That's it. It's out. Both axles out. You can see why you can't just swap disc brakes onto the rear axle. You actually can see here the coil bucket. It's all welded assembly where the drum brake actually bolts on. You can actually see on the disc brake where that part is completely different. You actually have this part right here is the caliper bracket, and that's all one piece welded to the coil bucket itself. So you can't just swap disc brakes onto your stuff. You actually have to swap the whole rear axle. One other thing I found in my research is everybody said you had to get e-brake cables from an HHR SS to get it to work because obviously the ends are different. Well, when I looked up the part number for the Cobalt brake cable on the SS, it was the same part number, AC Delco part number. So we're just going to use the Cobalt SS cables. It should work. I mean, it's the same part number. Shouldn't have any issues at all. We're going back in, and we're going to try to do this in one take. It's pretty easy. So let's do it. One bolt started to hold this side up. Let's go to the other side. Let's get this tire out of my way. until you get all the bolts in. Your 19 on top and your 22 on the bottom. Now we'll do the exact same on the other side. First, go ahead and hook up the brake line. Just going to feed it back into its little bracket. It's the exact same as it is on the Cobalt. Take our little clip or the line holder, slide that back in. There we go. And then thread our steel line back in. Now you'll do the exact same on the other side. Plug in the ABS where we unplugged it, and then all we got left to do are the e-brake cables. You want to actually feed your cable into the bracket right here. You see that? Okay. Feed it all the way in. Then it seats in there with a little O-ring on the end. Then you take your little holder and you just snap it back in place. Now my jack stands in the way, so I will have to do that after I get some wheels and tires on it. Not sure how well you can see. This is actually what makes this part of it, I think, the most, I wouldn't say difficult, just tricky. Getting both of those cables back into the bracket. There's just not a lot of room to work in this tiny little console, but they're in, and they fit just like the factory ones. And now we're going to tighten up our adjustment bolt, and we'll be good to go. Well, I am done for the day. I've ordered some brand new pads and rotor set. It's drilled and slotted, kind of not real expensive, but I'm not going to put it together with this old stuff. The back isn't too bad. Looks like a factory rotor, no real grooving or anything like that. Decent pads, but the fronts, on the other hand, are garbage. You can see a lot of grooves, there's a big lip on them, and honestly the only thing we were really after were those extended caliper brackets, so we can use the larger diameter rotor. But once those come in, we'll be able to throw those on the front, change out the rear, and bed the brakes in and be good to go. Well, it's all back together. Just finished bedding the brakes in. Seems a lot better than the old drum rear and smaller discs in the front. Just got some eBay special Cobalt SS pads and drilled and slotted rotor set. Nothing special. I think it was like 115 shipped for all four. And that's it. Went together pretty simple. It was exactly what everybody says, a plug and play deal. ABS plugs in, the parking brake cables hook right up to the HHR without any issues. And seems it was pretty simple swap, other than running into some issues with just using old used brake parts, and I had to upgrade a couple of the guide pins were stuck on the rear and a few other things. But other than that, it was extremely straightforward.